Happy Financial Literacy Month! How can people start to plan for what we're dealing with in today's economy?
Maybe it's not about the goal 10 years down the road. Maybe it's the goal for 2 weeks from now.
My goals are just to be comfortable.
And to be able to own a home at some point.
If we're thinking about how could we put that money to use back then when I was younger, I'm sure that maybe I wouldn't even be here on the BG show.
You could be in Turks and Caicos.
I'd probably,
St. Barts.
yes.
Happy Financial Literacy Month! Latanya, it's so good to have you back.
Thank you for having me again,
And we have a
Brandon.
new person, Anthony from TD. How's
Hi.
it going?
Nice to meet you. Very well.
Well, you know what we do here? We build better with me, myself, Brandon, powered by TD. And this is such an important episode because it is Financial Literacy Month. This year will mark the 14th year.
Time flies.
When you're having fun.
Exactly. How couldn't you? It's Financial Literacy Month.
Why do you think Financial Literacy Month is important? And Tanya, I'll start with you.
Well, it's important because everything in life centers around financial stability. And I think it's very important for us to just touch on supporting people who don't actually have access to that kind of information to make sure that there's a space for them to learn and to be motivated to do a better job with their finances.
Yeah, Anthony, you're a behavioral expert. So talk to me. Why do you think Financial Literacy Month is important?
I think it's really important as a time to reflect and reset what things are working, what things aren't working in our financial lives. And financial literacy and financial wellness is so intrinsically tied to our overall well-being, right? It's one of the biggest predictors of our life satisfaction. So it's important that we build strength in this area so, we can be set up for success in the future.
I grew up with a single mother. We didn't have much, so we were pretty much saving a lot.
I definitely was taught more like save.
I learned that you don't have to always buy expensive stuff, and that made me very frugal in life, and I thank her a lot for that.
I was always taught try not to owe anything and try to have the least amount of credit cards, and now it's finding that balance. So it's relearning, not just follow exactly what my parents did.
When I was growing up and in school, financial literacy was not even part of the curriculum. You had to learn about it at home or from somebody. But that probably will dictate or determine your habits when it comes to your finances, right?
Correct.
Totally.
My experience, I recognize that financial literacy is dependent typically based on your family and your family situation. So you develop practices and habits from what you see close to you, which is why sometimes when we get older and we're now meeting people with a different mindset around finances, it's surprising sometimes to us.
As soon as you said mindset, all I could think about was this viral clip from Nicki Minaj who said, being broke is a state of mind. Do you believe where you are at financially sometimes can be a state of where you are mentally?
I think both are related. Again, it has to do with environment.
Yeah.
For the Black community in particular, I recognize that we have a lot of financial trauma.
And what do you mean by financial trauma?
So if we think about the history of Blacks and slavery and the trauma related to that, the scarcity mindset, lack, we find that we've developed habits or knowledge around what we think we deserve, what we think is enough, and whether or not we actually can aspire to things that society deems as the pinnacle of success.
Yeah, just to support your point, I think, if you've grown up going to the bank, let's say, and your family has had a really good relationship with the people there and with money, that's going to set you up for success. It's going to imprint something good. But conversely, if you have this negative attitude towards money for whatever reason, that imprints on the next generation as well. So it's very much an intergenerational thing, and it's quite hard to sort of break free from that.
How can you break free from that mindset?
Setting the right kinds of goals for yourself, fully understanding your own financial situation, recognizing what's working, what's not working. I heard this example once recently where if you think about sprinters at the final heat of the Olympics, right? They all have the exact same goal, right? Get to the line first. But what's going to determine whether they win is the systems they've had in place, right? Their habits that they've built, right? The plans that they've been able to follow through. That's what really makes a difference in my view, right? Sticking to that plan.
Financial setbacks, obviously cut down and going out and eating out, because I feel like that's the one I struggle the most with.
Every dollar I spend, I'm aware of what my budget is and if I'm going over and how I can make sure that if I do go over, what's the plan to cover it.
For me personally, I lean on my faith. What goes around will come around at some point, and the reward will come in the end.
When I'm budgeting, I just reevaluate my budget, see where I can cut costs or save money, see if I can cancel some subscriptions.
In terms of building better habits, right? Because we want to break cycles here and
Yes.
smash them. What's the first thing you would say to somebody out there who is struggling with that still?
It really depends on what the habit is. And so we can think about habits as a loop.
Okay.
We have a cue,
Yeah.
we have an action, and a reward, right? That reward reinforces those actions. Sometimes the cues can be, oh, I'm short on my pay this week. I'm going to go to this place.
Right.
But if we want to change our habits, to your point, it's about replacing that action, right? And in order to do that, we have to be very mindful of that, right? And I think empowered to explore what's the resources available to us, but also recognize when maybe we'll need help, and speak to an advisor who can help you understand what you don't know, right? But at the same time, sometimes it's really hard to change bad habits. An example would be not saving for ourselves and putting ourselves first. Sometimes it's just easier to automate. And that might be the best way to start cultivating better habits, right?
And sometimes, because a lot of people might be like, listen, I don't even have enough money to start saving. But it can be, you can start doing that automatic thing of like $1.
And TD has systems. We have pre-authorized transfer services.
Yeah.
Where you can automate it on a particular day and time. It actually just does it itself, and it accumulates in another account. You can determine if you want to have access to that account with your card or no access at all. And that helps with the habit of savings. Even if you're investing, people think that you need to start with a large sum of money. It is whatever you have in your hand and a commitment to continuously put funds aside. If you're to canvass the more well-off people in society, you will hear from them the word consistency around their goals, consistency around a particular habit for health or wellness, but they also have consistency around how they squirrel away money or buy assets.
For a lot of communities who haven't seen intergenerational wealth passed down and what that can do for you, when you first step into a little bit of money, maybe you get your first good paying job, or you get a nice good bonus, it's so easy to want to flaunt that. But what I've come to realize in life, like the people who are doing the best, it's Jamal who's wearing, the oldest type of kicks, right? No name brand jeans, no name brand shirt, very discreet, very mindful.
Quiet luxury.
Exactly.
Whispers.
Yes.
Doesn't yell.
That is something that we just need to overcome. If you own or start a business, you don't need to utilize the revenues to buy yourself a flashy car. And those are some of the things that I think in terms of our culture, we need to really tackle. Everything that you actually buy and consume actually has an expiration. And if it's not going to create more wealth, then it's not necessarily the best investment. I'm not saying that people who have money shouldn't utilize money for that purpose, but in the grand scheme of things, frugality wins majority of the time.
I think I used to have this like view that like money was bad, and if you had it, like you didn't deserve it, or like you weren't a good person. And now I just realized like those are limiting beliefs that made it actually harder for me to make money.
Okay, so what do you hear are the biggest misconceptions about finance?
Don't trust the banks, especially for Black communities. So I'm only speaking from that pillar that just because of the color of your skin, sometimes there are biases.
And that leaves a stain.
Based on where I work and what we do in the Black customer experience segment, the reason that we've developed a strategy around Black clients in particular is to see if we can become that intermediary where the conversation is had with someone who actually understands the culture and can then do a warm handoff with more explanation or more discovery in the initial conversation.
Yeah, and I want to remind everybody watching and listening that you can access the Black customer experience by clicking the link in the caption below in the description of this video. It's such a great service. You guys are doing amazing work there.
Thank you.
My goals are just to be comfortable.
Be stable,
And I would like to get a piece of land with just grass and trees.
Own property someday, I think.
to be able to own a home at some point. I think that would be the biggest one, yeah.
I want to be able to save. I want to have a TFSA. I want to understand retirement.
I want to move on to like today's economy because it is tough out there. So what are some tips and how can people start to plan for what we're dealing with in today's economy?
Uncertainty around the future is something that's in our human nature.
Yeah.
We tend not to like what we don't know. I would go back to some of my earlier comments around setting yourself up for success by creating a plan and setting goals that are measurable, achievable, time bound. And if some of those goals are too big when you look at them, maybe we have to chunk them into smaller milestones, right? So maybe it's not about the goal 10 years down the road. Maybe it's the goal for 2 weeks from now, and looking introspectively about what we can do to better our own financial situation.
The economy, environment, everything is unpredictable. What you can control is how you spend and how you save and how you utilize the savings in a way that's beneficial.
Markets can be turbulent sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes what we do, sometimes that can make us feel like we're more at risk than we actually are. And we end up taking actions that in the long run put those long run goals at risk. And that's why I think having, an advisor can really help filter what's important and what's not important. But also financial literacy, it can help us understand what is important and what isn't important, right? And that's why financial literacy is as important as it is.
Sometimes you need to just ride the wave.
Yeah.
Because waves won't die. We got to crash into the moment.
One of the things that I think is important to mention here is that sometimes people are in a position where they don't feel like they have enough money to invest, right? And now might not seem like the right time. Markets are too turbulent. The economy isn't going in the direction I want it to go in.
So when is the right time?
No.
Ooh. When is the right time?
No.
Big thing that I do need to do is go see a financial advisor who can help me, say hey, this is what you're doing right now. Here's ways that you can still have the same lifestyle but save.
If you have funds available to you, you want to be able to satisfy your needs, not your wants.
Okay, my last question for both of you, and it's going to be a very reflective one. Latanya, what would you say to your younger self about financial literacy?
I'd tell myself to jump in and ride the wave because I'd have at that age a longer period to recover. If I had looked back, say for example, when I was getting birthday money, if we were thinking about how could we put that money to use back then when I was younger, I'm sure that maybe I wouldn't even be here on the BG show.
You'd be in Turks and Caicos.
I'd probably,
St. Barts,
yes.
on a yacht in Dubai.
Even that, nothing's impossible. It is important for us to start earlier, way earlier. And regardless of your economic situation, position, like I was a middle class Jamaican citizen, I still was afforded the opportunity to look at money and save, and that's it.
Anthony, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back and talk to young Anthony?
Challenge perceptions about what's risky and what isn't risky. Because my younger self didn't know, right? What felt risky at the time, I would look back on now and say, how did I miss that? Why didn't I do that earlier? And so I think it's relying on people that you trust more, who have more experience around you to help guide you. And whoever that might be, within your family or outside of your family, I think that's what I would tell myself. Be willing to accept help when, if you don't know the answer.
Latanya, Anthony, I've such enjoyed this conversation. This has been great.
Yeah.
Happy Financial Literacy Month, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, it's BG, and I want to know, what do you think about what you just watched? Make sure to drop your thoughts in the comments below, but also make sure to check out even more great content like this video and this video over here. And if you haven't subscribed to the Brandon Gonis Show, do so right now by clicking this button right here.